What's going on? My name is Chad Christopher, and this is my woodworking shop. Now, I've always been intimidated by building stuff. I've had just kind of this hidden passion for building things, and I'm an awful handyman. So I decided to dedicate this YouTube channel to learning how to build stuff, especially in the woodworking world. So this is my shop, Dojo Built Designs, and this series is dedicated to the people who are trusting me to build something special for them. This is all about my first commissioned projects. So come along with me for this ride. Don't be fooled by this Carhartt flannel and this fancy looking shop and tools. I'm learning as I go, but I couldn't be more stoked to be on this journey. I hope you guys enjoy the journey with me. With that said, let's get started. What's going on, guys? Chad Christopher here. Welcome back to another project video. This one is a commissioned video for one of my best friends. His name is Jonathan. He is a big time smoker. Not that kind of smoker. He's, smokes on his Traeger grill, whatever. He smokes meats every weekend, like clockwork. The dude really loves this stuff. And he asked me for a cutting board to end all cutting boards. So we're going with a big, beefy monstrosity. We're gonna cut it up and use the edge grain. Huge walnut cutting board. We're gonna CNC in a cool logo for him. Because I'm gonna have to film this one by myself, I think I'm probably just gonna set this up, maybe do a voiceover, talk you through how I did it, and we'll see kind of how that style plays out. So let's get to it. All right, so this is the lumber we're using. This is just some rough walnut. They're probably about 8 inches wide by about 3 feet long, and they're 1.25 inches thick. The first thing I'm doing is just making sure I've got a perfectly straight edge on one of the edges. So I'm running a circular saw there. You can see I've got a straight edge clamped up there. This will allow me to have one straight edge, and then I can run the other edge along the table saw fence. I've been trying to keep the shop clean, by the way, so I've been trying to clean as I go. Okay, over here I'm planing it, so I'm trying to get both of them down to the exact same thickness, just get some of the imperfections off the surfaces of the boards. Now that I've got one straight edge, I can reference that along the fence and use the miter saw to cut one of the ends perfectly straight. I'm cutting these down to 1.25 inch strips, and then I'm turning those strips on their side. So the edge grain is actually what's facing up rather than traditionally what would be the face grain up on top. You can see me here just kind of arranging them, seeing what lines up best with the grain and the edges and stuff like that. One of the things I was reading is just that this edge grain takes knife cuts quite a bit better than the face, so it'll remain, a little bit prettier and stand up to those cuts over time. It's day 2 working on this cutting board, and I just picked something up. So let me show you the problem first. Okay, so here's what's going on. You see how there's like gaps in here and in here? So these things aren't perfectly straight boards. So, I can certainly glue them and just clamp them and just force them straight, but I'm a little bit worried that over time they're gonna end up warping and maybe coming apart, and obviously we don't want that happening. So I bought another tool. So I bought a jointer here, and essentially what that's gonna do is make one edge dead flat. Then I can run it in the planer again, get the other edge totally flat. So in theory, we should have 2 parallel dead flat straight cuts, and then everything should hopefully line up close together. Yeah, I'm gonna try running this jointer for the first time ever. This was, it's a semi-big investment, but I feel like I'm gonna be making a lot of these. Like I really, really like this idea of a big, thick, manly cutting board. I feel like cutting boards are kind of dainty. They're kind of cute, And as someone who likes to smoke a bunch of meats myself, you need something that's gonna stand up to a whole brisket, So I think I'm gonna be doing a lot of these. That's why I made this investment. Let's run this through the jointer and then the planer, and then hopefully everything just sits beautifully flush. So I should have shown the jointer in a little bit more detail, but essentially there's a blade on the bottom of that fence there and kind of an opening. So as I'm running these strips along, that blade is taking off any of the high points along the bottom of the wood. And then I run it through the planer again. Now that I've got the bottom totally flat, I should be able to get the top totally flat with the planer. All right, check this out. Look at that fit. Like you can't even see the seams anymore. I feel really good about that now. Now it's just time to get these things glued up and probably call it a night right there, let them dry overnight, and we'll go from there. So as you can see, I'm using really quite a bit of glue on each of these sections, and then I'm taking just kind of like a scraper, and I'm like flattening out all that glue, so it almost looks like the consistency of paint. That's one thing I did kind of wrong right at the beginning, is I didn't put enough glue on. So that's one thing I've really learned, is just go heavy on the glue, especially if you're going to run this through the planer after, get all that excess glue off. But yeah, so make sure that you've got a good consistency on the paint, wipe off as much as you can, and then clamp in as many places as possible to get a nice, even distribution of pressure. This is the next day, so I took them out of the clamps, obviously. Now I'm running it through the planer just to get any of those seams that were a little bit off and get any of that excess glue off of there, so we're back to just a dead flat surface. Once again, using the circular saw and a straight edge to straighten out one of the edges, and then I can reference that on the fence of the table saw to hit that other edge. And I'm just cutting it down to final width as well. So next step is I'm just taking the router here, and I am adding an 1/8 inch round over up on the top, take off any of them sharp edges. And then I'm just hitting it with sandpaper. So I started out with, I think, 120 sandpaper, I went to 150, and then 220. And then finally I decided on the bottom I'm gonna add a 45-degree chamfer. And that way, so this is actually the bottom, what's on top right now. That way you can get your fingers under there and have a little bit of a way to lift this board off of the table. Plus, I think it's just a really nice look. And then I took this board over to my homie at Topside CNC. They really hooked it up here. I wanted to get a nice logo engraved for Jonathan. This logo was one that he sent me. He said his family is a bunch of ranchers, and apparently this is a brand that has been in his family for over 150 years. So I thought that'd be really cool to include in his cutting board. There you can see it all finished up. It's looking really, really clean. They did a great job getting nice clean lines. And then I just wanted to get a nice final sanding to remove any imperfections. So I'm using 220 grit sandpaper and just the paper. The reason I'm using the paper is sometimes with the orbital sander, you'll get like little swirls left on the board and things like that. So by using just the actual sandpaper going parallel to the grain, it really helps to avoid any of those imperfections that are left by the machine sander. All right, now it's time to oil this thing up. I'm using cutting board oil. I got this cutting board oil just from Home Depot. It's like 10 bucks a bottle or something. It's pretty affordable, but it's all food safe and obviously works really well for cutting boards. So this is my favorite part of the whole process. You really start to see the grain come alive in the wood and really just starts to look like a finished project. So yeah, I'm just going over the entire surface. Now I'm gonna hit this surface probably for 3 to 4 coats. I'm gonna let this sink for about 20 minutes, wipe off the excess. I'm gonna do that about 3 or 4 times to really make sure that this board is set up properly, it's oiled deeply, and it's gonna last. All right, y'all, I think I'm gonna end the video right here, but I think this thing is turning out absolutely gorgeous. Now, a couple things. This one ended up being, I believe it's about 12 inches wide, like this way wide, by 26 inches long. And then thickness wise, we ended up at about 1.25 inches, and then we planed that down a little bit. So a little bit less than 1.25 inches. In the future with these, I would like to make them a little bit bigger, man. I think that they need to be 1.5 to 2 inches final thickness. And then, yeah, I think, the overall board should be a little bit bigger than this one. But I think this is a great size, honestly, for like a rack of ribs, your sauces, your rubs, whatever. I think it'll absolutely do the trick. So anyways, I'm stoked on how this thing came out, man. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I've done videos in the past on like the epoxy style, and there's a lot of those kind of cutting boards out there that are really pretty. But this one, this one's beefy, you know. This one's, I think that there's sort of an opening right there for some boards to be made for people who just like you know, smoking big meats. You want to throw a full brisket on here. You want to throw multiple slabs of ribs on here, and I think that I'm gonna start slinging some of these. So not anytime soon, you know, I've got a lot on my plate, but as I you know, ramp these up, this is something that I really think I would like to build more of. If that's something you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below. If you guys have any you know, ideas, suggestions, things like that, let me know. But this is something I think I'd really like to you know, really like to push forward with and make something out of. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you were new around here. Hit me up if you want to custom commission any sort of build, whether it's a cutting board or something else. I would love to work together. That email is down in the video description below. So anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you guys next time on Chad Christopher.